Don't forget cards at RitaYanez.com, and so am I. Under your bed. Turn on the light! Turn on the light! Turn on the light! Hi Taurus, this is your weekly reading for the week of December 14th through 20th. I hope you're feeling well, doing fine. I hope everything is going your way. The first card you've drawn for Monday is the Judgment card in reverse. This card gives me the idea that maybe you feel like things aren't going the way you wish they would. And this would be kind of on a bigger scale than just today and tomorrow. You might be feeling in general that you wish you were at a different place in life at this time. For those of you that feel pretty good about life in general, it could be in the area of relationship or work that you're feeling not so excited about, or you feel like this is just not what you're meant to be doing. If you have an idea of something else you want to do, you could always put it into practice in terms of a hobby. Like if you've always wanted to be a radio show host, you can maybe start creating blogs, vlogs, any other kind of podcast, a video. Just start learning the ropes of how these things work in terms of the different medium, like digital, the audio equipment, what else it is that you need. And don't go buying it. I'm just saying study it to figure out how it is that you'll work with these things. And maybe somewhere along the line you realize this is what you've always wanted to do. And at the same time, some of you could say, you know what, I hate this. This is too complex. I don't want to learn how to do this. I realize that, really it isn't something that I want to be doing. So for those of you that are experiencing this on a personal, spiritual level, the sun in Sagittarius, which is your solar 8th house, squaring Jupiter in Virgo, in your 5th house of romance and creativity, could be part of the reason why you're not feeling like you're up to your real calling. And maybe some of you won't know what that is. Jupiter in Virgo isn't always the most comfortable. Virgo wants to do things a certain way and very detail oriented. And then Jupiter wants to come in and just make everything big and gassy and bloated. And so it doesn't always provide to be realistic enough for Virgo, whichever house that is for you in your personal chart, which of course this is solar astrology. So I'm looking at it in terms of your 5th house, could get us to be thinking, this is where I want you to use that dose of realism, that maybe we've always wanted to be a professional scrapbooker, whatever that means. And then in the end, we realize that there really isn't a market that would sustain us unless you were in a really creative area and could afford a storefront, and you'd be more like a tiny version of Michael's where you could do these things and maybe be able to support at least your hobby habit. It isn't always going to be enough to pay the bills, but Jupiter and Virgo could make things look a lot more of what they could be, that we're looking at it from the rose-colored glasses standpoint, or we're looking at it especially in terms of romance. For those of you that are single and looking, you could be meeting a person and thinking, oh, he or she is just the most romantic ever. And then, after you spend a few days with them, you realize, oh my God, no, what was I thinking? And so just remember that Jupiter and Virgo could make us feel like things have far more potential than they really actually do. And in terms of relationships, you could see that happening. And Sagittarius, having the sun there, almost brings up to the surface to redefine, well, is a relationship really all that you want? Do you want it to become a marriage and combine a life? Are you looking at this potential partner for marriage through rose-colored glasses? Or if you're already in a committed relationship, are you thinking that you guys could just have the best delicatessen ever, but you really don't have the income to start a business at this time, and you really think that this communicating and bringing into realization or the idea of it, you think is going to just make your whole life better, and in reality you realize that it isn't going to be as fulfilling as you think it would be, because eventually the realization that maybe spiritually and on a soul level, you need to first just be happy all on your own without the external, without the distractions. That might actually be what this Sun in Sagittarius squaring Jupiter in Virgo, it might be asking you to look at. Now, you could check out and just daydream and say to yourself, look, Rita, or even say to me, right? Look, Rita, this is really just a daydream fantasy. I know it's really not going to happen this way. I just like thinking about it. Well, then that's fine, because you might even find some resonance in another area of your life that would make you feel as fulfilled. And if you hadn't have been daydreaming without taking any financial or personal risk, which, could actually happen this week, and we'll talk about that. But that could lead you to the realization, you know what, all I love doing is studying. I really don't want to get a doctorate in this philosophy or this school of thought. I really just like the idea of learning that makes me feel fulfilled. I think that's a pretty good idea, because you could take some free Coursera classes or take some free online lectures and not invest anything in it. And then right through the same avenue, you could find something that you're really meant to do, and maybe something that you want to always do as a hobby because it doesn't cost anything and now you're really loving it. Also, Mercury in Capricorn, that same solar ninth house, sextiles Neptune in Pisces. Pisces being your solar 11th house. So there could be a way to even reconnect with some groups of people, or to be part of the team or the gang. It could be work related for some of you, and for others it could just really be a social situation that you're feeling good about, and could reconnect with people that you've been out of the flow of. If you've had to take some personal time off because you had a baby, or if you were just at home raising kids and then coming back into the workforce, you could see how that energy would manifest. If you've been out because you've had a surgery, or were convalescing or helping somebody else through a period of convalescence, then you might be coming right back and thinking, wow, I sure did miss this. This feels great. So we have to remember also that Mars in Libra, your solar sixth house of work, is still challenged by Uranus in Aries, your 12th house. So I think that by Tuesday, you'll start to see what the real crux of this is, and what the real meat of it is, what it is that you can actually take away from it. But definitely, Mars is not excited to be in Libra, and Libra is not excited to host Mars. Mars is all about this drive and energy and going for it, and real bravado and real strength and power, and being the leader of the pack. And Libra just wants everybody to get along. That's your solar sixth house. So you could see how Libra wants to be team oriented, or to profit from work that helps the company profit. Mars is like, no, I'm all out for myself. And there could be some issues here related to a past life experience, or even just some subconscious ideas of what being number one really means to you, and it could be something that you're working on now. And on Tuesday, we've got the Eight of Swords, and this is a card that indicates on the level of mind, and maybe even in the way you're thinking, that there needs to be an adjustment. And it could be all about that Libra Mars, and this could be where you're feeling like, I really do want to be my own boss. I really do want to be number one. I want to have my own business, but I don't seem to be able to do it without the help of other people, which really just contraindicates what I'm feeling here, or what I think I feel. And this is where we get that idea of needing to break free of a thought pattern. And it really is just something that's on your mind, or something that's on the back burner. And probably this is where we could say you're feeling a prisoner of your own mind. But if you make that realization, you become exactly the solution that you need. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. I would at least just look at this as a transient kind of energy. It could be that you're feeling restricted, and it could be on some level of hoping that you were going to get this bonus at work and you see that it's just not working out, and you guys are going to get, hopefully the gift certificate for the turkey, but you were wishing for at least $100 in some kind of a bonus and it's just not happening. I wouldn't be surprised. It's not cool, and I hope that's not what happens, but you could see where that kind of restriction of the 8 could come into play. On Wednesday, we have the 7 of Cups in reverse, and this is a card that indicates, again, that idea of the rose-colored glasses and not looking at things realistically. I don't think that this is going to be a major problem because you seem to have already been working on it from at least Monday, where you're coming off the energy of that new moon, which was on Friday the 11th in your 8th house of combined assets and joint ventures, and whether it's in a relationship or a business partnership where the two of you were supposed to really come together and produce something, and it doesn't seem to have been a whole lot more than maybe that hot air that we get with Jupiter in Virgo, and Virgo saying, no, 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 this needs to work by the details, don't you know? Libra says, well, I really want everybody to be happy, and Mars is sitting here pushing me to the forefront. And so that new moon was great, and we're still operating off of it, obviously, but it starts to wane with each day thereafter. And so you're probably coming down from it here with the 7 of Cups in reverse. Also, when we have the 7 of Cups in reverse and it's in the combination of cards that are restrictive, like that 8 and the Judgment card in reverse, again, this isn't saying that something that you really hope to do isn't going to work in any way. It might be that your favorite dream of having a knitting supply shop isn't going to work out that way, but you can really have your favorite hopes and wishes by making a craft room in your house where you can have that feeling and maybe bring some friends over that share that same passion for knitting or crochet or whatever. You could have the same feeling, so don't feel so limited just because it doesn't work in the way that you hope. Of course, Taurus being a fixed earth sign, you're always trying to follow where's the money and what can I do with it, but at the same time, being a fixed sign, you are difficult to move off of a particular train of thought. Once you've put yourself in a mode, it's hard for you to get off of there, but it is something that you can do. It doesn't mean you can't. It just means that you have to try a little harder. My sun sign is Scorpio, so I'm fixed water. Try that. At least fixed earth makes sense. Being fixed water means I'm very emotional and very deep and very intuitive, and at the same time, it's almost impossible to get my mind off of an idea. Like if I decide, well, we're just going to be celibate for years, well, then I'm going to be celibate for a certain number of calendar years that I've already penned out, and no matter what, you can't change my mind, even if, you come in with the most incredible deal and try to convince me, nothing doing, I'm not getting off of this little perch because it's what I say I'm going to do. So I feel for you. I totally know what that's like in my own creepy, watery way. Thursday, we have the Page of Wands upright, which is a very good sign, I think, because it means that there's some news coming to you. And it could be either way, that it's good news or weird news, and it could be surprising news, but at least it's news with some momentum. In the reverse, this is kind of like news that doesn't help at all, and it just kind of gets stuck there. But in this case, the Page of Wands is bringing news with it that at least changes the status quo. Now, on Thursday, also, we have Venus and Scorpio. That is your solar 7th house of relationships and partnerships and togetherships and any friendships or working relationships that are extremely close, sextiling Pluto in Capricorn, your solar 9th house, again, that higher octave of spirituality, of higher study, of religion, of what else is that? That is your in-laws. This is also legal issues. Complex legal issues would belong to this house as well. And so with that in mind, a sextile energy being one that we can actually work with to create an opportunity that's kind of a win-win situation, we could have the energy here of being able to work out some kinks with a significant other for those of you who are married or significantly partnered, not just romantic relationships that belong to the 5th house. So for those of you that are cohabitating or have been together for years, that kind of thing in terms of romance, this gives us the ability to really talk things out and maybe try to smooth things over, especially long-standing issues where these differences of opinion can almost be relegated to some higher philosophy that I know it sounds like a bunch of bullshit, and maybe it is, but at least it gets it off the table and moves it to a shelf where we're just going to put it way up high and it can gather dust there, because we're just going to call this dharma or karma, but we're getting rid of it and we're just going to agree to not talk about that thing again. So this is also a good energy for those of you that are trying to figure out how to work out some issues with the partnership that you may be actually dissolving, or for those of you who are in business with somebody else and you're trying to restructure it. you could have some good talks here. I still believe that Mars and Libra is enough of a challenge, even as a separating aspect, to want to, or necessitates you being aware that you could become very aggressive, especially as it relates to sixth house matters. So anything where it relates to actually this partnership being a result of work and you're partnered on a project, or if it's a result of working with some family members to take care of somebody that you're in service to, or that you've placed yourself in service to, that there might be some issues there. Just don't get too aggressive, because that's exactly what could cause problems for you right there. Friday, we've got the High Priestess in reverse, and this is an energy that gives us the idea of someone who maybe isn't exactly what they appear to be, or they're trying to sell you on an idea that is really serving somebody else's ulterior motives or ulterior objectives. If this card does represent a woman, which I really don't know how to call it, I want to say that if this is a woman, or even if it's a very feminine male that comes across as mysterious and interesting, watch out, because they may not be as deep or of such substance as they would like you to believe. This could also carry over into your holiday shopping, that you could think that your budget is better than it is, or you walk through the mall. And I'm sure that this happened to my mother about 14 times, because I remember she kept giving me these gift packages that she bought one year that was some kind of a fingernail oil, and there was a buffing tool, and there was a file and some lotion. I could say the best part of this whole kit was the lotion was actually very high quality, but I believe she explained it to me that some Armenian type people grabbed her in the middle of the mall and started polishing one hand and distracting my mother, and before she knew it, my mother had these polished, shiny, natural nails. And so and Mom, I love you every time you give me one of those. And I think she must have bought them in bulk because I got it quite a lot. And actually, I don't have any more of that lotion. And it was actually a very good lotion. But anyway, really, the truth is it wasn't the product as much as it was the woman being distracted by another one talking to my mother. And then this one is polishing the nails. And before you know it, you think like this miracle has occurred, but it's just the one gal's quick polishing action being distracted. My mother was not aware of the monotony that is required, or that it feels monotonous to just sit there buffing your nails for 30 freaking seconds. And so this is the same thing that can happen, as a woman with a slick talk could talk you into more of these packages of nail things that then you'll just look for reasons to give them to people, right? It's a great package, but really, was it worth whatever it costs? I don't know what it costs, but that's the kind of idea, that you could be sold something that isn't as amazing as it appears to be. It could be the ultimate case of the sham wow, which if I give you a regular chamois or a synthetic chamois from the dollar store, it's actually going to work just the same. The size may be a little bit different, but it really does the same thing. So just keep an eye out, because we also have the Sun in Sagittarius squaring the North Node in Virgo. Again, the 8th house being the combined assets, and there could be some conversation that could be uncomfortable, if not challenging, as it relates to community assets and community property and community bank accounts and joint assets such as this. And the conversation with the North Node in Virgo, your solar 5th house, could throw a wrench in your romantic situation, if that's the kind of person that is first and foremost and paramount in your life at this time. And if it doesn't have to do with a romantic partner that is not a 7th house type of married, structured, committed partnership, it could be your children. This is also the house where we tend to spend a lot of money on those hobbies. Or, look, I'm going to sell you a whole box of bric-a-brac. Look, it's $2. And before you know it, I took your $2 and I gave you a box full of plastic lids or something. And I may have tricked you into thinking that this is going to solve all of your problems as it relates to all of your Tupperware, because you know what? I forgot to mention that you could get the same thing over at the dollar store for $2, but I'm going to give you 20 of them for $2. And yes, sold. And then you're like, what the hell just happened? That's the kind of thing that can happen in the solar 5th house. So when that happens in combination with the High Priestess, we need to be careful. Also, Venus in Scorpio is creating a quincunx in conjunct angle to Uranus in Aries. So again, we have the 7th house partnership, and we've got something here that is coming up from the surface, coming up from the past. And this is the kind of energy that in Aries, is somewhat like that wounded inner child that just wants his mommy now. And it doesn't matter if you're completely aware that your mommy died when you were 6 years old, but it was so traumatic. And obviously we know anytime you lose a mother, there's something is going to go wrong, if it's not handled appropriately, and if that child isn't comforted and helped through that trying period. And I use the number 6 for a reason, because I don't even want to think about how that works when people are under 6 years old, because at least more of the fixed part of the personality is set by about 6 years old. So I always hope everybody has their mommy right there to smell them, breathe them, nurse from them. But with the 12th house, we could get a person who is obviously at odds with the way they feel about some wounding, from a past life or previous experience, or maybe even as it relates to, being or not being able to stand up for yourself. Maybe you were teased or bullied as a child, and then having the 12th house ruler, in which case for you, it's actually Mars, because your solar first house begins with Taurus. In the opposite sign, Libra, there could be all kinds of displays of temper, and they really could come across as, it always makes me think of a big, stuck out lip Donald Trump type that's just, pouting. And I just have all the money in the world to pout. And I'm just, damn it, I know I'm wrong, but I'm not going to say it because I just want to be out here in that forum. And I'm like, okay, Donald, so what part of that wounded inner child do you need to be nursed? I thought he had enough wives to have accomplished this. I'm just kidding, but you know what I'm saying. Saturday, we've got the 6 of Cups, and this is a card that indicates that you are dealing with some energies and maybe even just memories of the past, and it really can show up with thoughts or discussion or interaction with somebody who is physically present in the world at this time, who is from your past. It could be a very fond relationship that you're thinking about. And with Mercury conjunct Pluto in Capricorn, we still have that need to dig down for the real truth of things that are what you hope, and maybe aren't even aware, will move you to a higher state of personal evolution. You feel like if you could just get over this one hump, and you're trying to figure out what it is, and I'm going to tell you, it has something to do with either your childhood or somebody that you were in love with once upon a time or married to. Like, this totally makes me think of my mother and my deceased father, that I know she cares about my stepfather because he's an unfortunate human, although I have 4 and 6 letter words to describe this. But if my father were alive and present and we got rid of my stepfather, my parents could have gone right back to their original relationship, which was, her first romance, her first everything, her first love. And even though my dad was truly, God forgive me, a son of a bitch, they had one of those bonds that cannot be broken, even through time, death, space. It just doesn't go away. So my mother, for example, hi mom, she may be thinking about my father. There could be thoughts of her own mother. She could be thinking about what it was like years ago before her life was encumbered, or when she really felt more of her creativity and her youthfulness, which she'd have to meet my mother. She's like a chicken going 150 miles an hour, and we're just like, damn, she should be a race chicken. This is a person with too much energy. She makes me look like I'm sitting still or moving backwards, like inertia is not even the word for it. But my mother's one of those people who may really be actively thinking about the better times in her life, her youth. I still think that this could be somewhere along the lines of either her current relationship, maybe a time where, my stepdad wasn't a dick, or maybe during the time that her relationship with my dad was better at different times. And I get to reread these things energetically by looking at the photos that she gives me. And one of my favorite photos is a wedding honeymoon picture of my mom and dad looking through, while somebody took a photo from the outside of a vehicle, looking in at them through the front windshield. It is so cohesive. It just totally sums up her joy and happiness and her hopes for the future, which really turned into a wonderful life in the United States. I've told you guys the stories. My parents came over in 1966, and my mother was so mod and so cool that I look at these pictures and I'm like, she could have been a go-go dancer. She was just amazing. And so anyway, that's where this energy of the past could be coming up. Something like my mother's situation. I'm giving you ideas of how this could manifest for you, and what it is from the past that you might be thinking of. Maybe it is a lover that you'll never reconnect with again, and you know this. And maybe it is somebody that you wish you could meet, and it's never going to be that person again, but somebody maybe with some of those qualities. Like maybe you hope to be with a man or woman who just laughs all day long and knows how to have fun fun, but at the same time can be very serious and steady. That would actually make you feel pretty good. On Sunday, we've got the Page of Swords. So I just want to caution you again to make sure that you watch where you put your Mars mouth, put your money where your mouth is and be careful what you do with your mouth when Mars is there, because it could cause you to say a whole lot of truths or things that could suddenly come up from the surface, your 12th house, and could cause you problems, and maybe it won't really solve anything. I think that we've got enough of this ongoing energy of the Mercury square Uranus, which of course Mercury again in Capricorn and Uranus being in your solar 12th house, where again these little expressions, if not big ones, that can suddenly come up could be that of your house of the 12th house, which is the house of self-undoing. And you could really be like, you know what, I am just so sick of you. I wish that you would take a flying and then it's out there and it's almost hard to reel back in. But considering that the winter solstice is about to come to us and it will begin in Taurus on the 21st, and I know that's the following Monday, but this could be the idea that you're feeling like you're going within, and it might be a little melancholy for you because winter solstice is starting in a location that would be about you and your identity in the world. And so maybe this is going to be one of those calm winters. And the same kind of advice could be said for those of us who like winter and we welcome it, but we know it's also a dormant season, especially where we live at now. It snowed today again, and it looked like it would stick, and I wanted it to, at least to just make it worth it, and then by the afternoon it was gone. And so Venus also trining Chiron, Venus and Scorpio trining Chiron in Pisces, again your solar 11th house and your solar 7th house. I think that it would do you some good to go be among your friends or to spend time with groups of people that you feel good around. I think that the main issue for anyone's melancholy here in this part of the world, or at least in the hemispheres where winter really is this time of year, is that we could go within and we feel a little sad and we enjoy it for a while until it gets too cold for too long, and I could complain about that. But we also have this ongoing idea that Uranus retrograde in Aries, again your solar 12th house, squaring Pluto retrograde in Capricorn, your solar, where was I at? Ninth house. You could just be thinking about some things, and it could be that you have had, a difficult go of it here and there in terms of some legal issues and maybe trying to get some debts out of the way before Christmas and the holidays. And remember something, I do want to tell you this, that, okay, we are going into the Mercury shadow, and that is the pre-shadow that starts at about the 19th, December 19th here, so that would be on Saturday, and this is making us feel a little bit more aware of it, I think, because Mercury conjunct Pluto there is also making us dig for answers, and they could just be to questions like, okay, I don't know what the question is, but how about why? Why do I feel this way? I'm not sure if I can even quantify how I feel, but I feel like I need to express myself. And then we could have ourselves one of those stupid little Donald Trump moments. I don't like him, so I just feel free to say whatever I want, because he does too. He just has money and forum to get people like sheep. I don't even understand. I like the polls recently that shows us that not everybody in the United States is a complete idiot. We know he is, but not everybody in the U.S. is. And so here we've got the Page of Swords that could be causing us to say things, and I kind of want to use Donald Trump as this kind of example of Mars in Libra, kind of this discomfort there with needing to be fair but not being fair, because we just want to say angry things because we want to heal this old wounding, and at the same time I almost don't want to, because it dignifies or validates his backward thinking. He's just got the money to say it and play. He thinks he can play with us like marionette puppets, which I know a few people close enough to him that could tell you that's exactly what he's doing. But at the same time, I want to say that we may feel those wounds coming up from the past. We may feel like we just have to get attention for what it's worth so that somebody because just like, what does a toddler do when it is finally just pounding its fist and screaming and upset? It's just ultimately no longer aware of why it's crying or screaming that way. All it really wants is to be cradled by its mother and maybe suck its thumb or have a breast in its mouth. And I suppose that could be Donald Trump. Like, I better stop while I'm ahead. But you see what I'm saying? Even if it is an old wounded part of yourself, whether it is very recent or very old, past life type, or just primitive, some need when you were an infant that wasn't met. Sometimes I hate to admit this, but there is truth to the difference between infants that are nursed and infants that are not nursed. We've been able to look at studies for a long time and be able to complete all of these types of tests and surveys and observations that this is really what the children need to be soothed, and it isn't probably for people that don't like to sit still, because you have to sit still most of the time when you're nursing. But these primitive, very primal needs that aren't met, or for example, when you were very young, if you were bullied in school and if no one helped you work through it, which it isn't because maybe people don't know that there's a problem, they just aren't always equipped to help deal with the problem. Like, what do we get when parents of bullied children are bullies themselves? What do? They teach the child to bully in return, and it just continues to create a kind of festering cycle of bullying, when maybe that bullied child, even if it does have a bullied dad, for example, we say, hey, look, some people are, like what I told my kids, some people are so messed up. They come from homes that are very sad, obviously, because if this kid's acting this way, either someone is teaching them that this is okay or allowing it, or that child is not getting what it needs and therefore is out there abusing other people because he or she is very angry on the inside too. So a whole lot of this wounding energy for you can start to be resolved, and you'll start to notice that next year there's more of an outward process within yourself where you are actually manifesting into the environment what it is that you need and what it is that you feel you can heal yourself with by doing for others. And Taurus, as good as you are at giving great gifts and doing wonderful things for people financially, you don't have to do that. The people who love you, they know that you love them. You don't have to prove it to them. If you don't have two nickels to rub together, then don't worry about it. It reminds me of my son, who was so worried about not being able to do certain things for me and his brothers for Christmas. And I said, but you've already done so many things, and we know that you love us. That's all we need to know. So remind yourself that, Taurus, even if you need to say to yourself, you know what, even if no one else tells me that they love me, I love me, and that's good enough today.